Today's show, the NBA Top 100 as voted on by Locked On Podcast hosts, is out, and you will not believe where Devin Booker and Jalen Green are both ranked. Let's talk about that and much more in this edition of Locked On Phoenix Suns.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome back into Locked On Phoenix Suns. My name is Benjamin Garcia, host of the Ben Garcia Show mornings on YouTube, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 7 a.m., as well as a credentialed Suns media member covering your Phoenix Suns 365 days out of the year. Thanks for making Locked On Suns your first listen here on this beautiful Monday night, Tuesday morning. Don't forget Locked On Suns free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. So click that follow or subscribe button to do it. Thousands, dare I say millions of Suns fans have already done. Become an everydayer and get locked on to the Phoenix Suns right here each and every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is not just closer than you think. It's here. And right now, new customers can get just $5 if your first bet, can bet just $5. And if your first bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets. Download the app on FanDuel.com to get started. Tomorrow, we'll have a John Voida Wednesday. He will join me a little bit different of the way kind of things are going around. However, because of the NBA Top 100 getting released, I wanted to just be me and you. Mano y mano, talking all things NBA Top 100 being released today. I've known about this list since about yesterday morning. I took a glance at it, and needless to say, I was disappointed but not surprised. Like that one meme where it's like, you knew what was coming, but you still can't help but be disappointed that a bunch of adults that vote on this list just got it wrong. Just got it wrong. I put Devin Booker at the 14th ranked player. I thought that was fair. I thought Devin Booker was very clearly out of the superstar range, which I believe is that 1 to 6 to 8 players in the NBA who I think if you have them on your team, regardless of what's around them, you can win a championship. It doesn't mean you will, but it means you can contend for one. And so without further ado, let's kind of get started. So we'll glance through some of these. Jalen Green, you'll see that he came in at number 92. We'll talk about him in another segment, but let's just glance at these really quickly. At 91 to 100, going from 100 down to 91, Toumani Camara, former Phoenix Sun, Anthony Simons, CJ McCollum, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Peyton Pritchard, RJ Barrett, Nikola Vucevic, Jaka Pirtle, Jalen Green, Christian Braun. And then you can kind of see it going down this list. I don't want to list them all off because we have an audio audience as well. But as I kind of click through some of these, you'll see guys at Kobe White at 73 and Jalen Suggs at 67 and maybe the first surprise, Joel Embiid at 52, Jalen Johnson at 42, Domantas Sabonis kind of rounding out those fringe star players at 32. And then you get to the top 30. And then you start to get to the star, all-star, superstar range. Or I guess I should say this is more like the stars to fringe superstars to superstar range. And Devin Booker came in at number 18. And it does feel a bit disrespectful to Devin Booker. Not crazy, but in this instance, if we're going off of my metric, the first 1 through 8 players I think you would consider your superstars in the NBA. Guys that if they are on your team, you have a chance to win a title. Nikola Jokic, couldn't agree more, who came in at number 1. Number 2, Shea. 3, Giannis. 4, Luka. 5, Steph. 6, Anthony Edwards. And I think that's where we end for here, because I said 6 to 8 range. Victor Wembanyama is at the 7th spot, has not won a playoff game yet. Not even a playoff series. Has not won a playoff game yet. Jalen Brunson has come up short time and time again. in the Eastern Conference and has shown his deficiencies as a defender, consistently getting picked on. That one just makes no sense to me. There's no world where Jalen Brunson's a better player right now than Devin Booker, but recency bias, this is what happens. And I apologize for kind of jumping all around the place here, but that kind of brings us to Devin Booker, who the 1 through 10 spots, you kind of have your stars, your superstar, or I guess I should say your superstars, your fringe stars, and Booker comes in right at the 18th spot, is a firm star in the NBA, but this is what happens when Devin Booker is out of the public eye for a long period of time, even if it's just for one season. But it's so interesting to me because I understand why Devin Booker fell. He fell because he hasn't had recent playoff success. And so for that reason, because when you're out of the public eye for 8 months at a time because you don't make the playoffs or you get eliminated really early in the playoffs, we forget about you. And we label you in the washed, has been, you was that up and coming superstar that we thought was going to bring a title to Phoenix, but ended up not doing so. Like, it's just frustrating to me because that's the only reason why you would drop Devin Booker, because you haven't seen him in a while. And because of that, out of sight, out of mind, Devin Booker comes in at the 18th spot. But it's just interesting because if we're using that same metric, because that's the only reason why you would drop Devin Booker this far. No NBA general manager is taking Kawhi Leonard, who is physically sometimes available and mentally never available. Evan Mobley, who's got worse statistics than Devin Booker does. Like, this is just funny. 18 points a game, shoots okay from free throw at 72%, shot 55, 37, 72 splits, 18 points a game, 9 rebounds. Like, cool. But he's not the 1A. He's not the one on his own team. I thought Cade Cunningham was even kind of funnier because, here's the bright new shining toy. This is what Devin Booker was a couple of years ago. 26 points a game, 46% from the field, 35% from 3, 84% from the field. But it's just interesting because, like, I'm kind of going all over the place, and I don't mean to bounce around, but Devin Booker in a down year had roughly the same field goal percentage as Cade Cunningham at 46%. Shot a little bit worse from three-point land, but was the better free throw shooter by a few percentage points more. Assists, Devin Booker averaged a couple of less than he did. Rebounds, Cade Cunningham averaged a couple of more than he did. But it's just interesting, right? If it's not about statistics, then it's about playoff success. Cade Cunningham has had 0 playoff success. Evan Mobley, 0 playoff success. It's just wild to me how when Devin Booker is out of the public eye for a little bit, people just immediately think he was the problem. When in all actuality, the problem was the surrounding cast in Devin Booker's camp was not good enough. And it's just funny because you throw Evan Mobley into the fold, who squandered being a 1 seed this year along with his guy, Donovan Mitchell, and Cade Cunningham, who lost in the first round to Jalen Brunson, who has continuously choked in the conference finals or before that. And I don't want to make this a Jalen Brunson show, so whatever. Take that for what it is. But it feels disrespectful. And so as we're kind of reacting to this list, and we'll get deeper into the other things, this is very clearly a do you remember me season for Devin Booker. And if you don't, I'm going to make you remember. Because in the Eastern Conference, it's easier to get in the playoffs. So Evan Mobley, Cade Cunningham have no issues. Even Tyrese Halliburton, who obviously right now, maybe not right now given the injury, but was a better player than Devin Booker, at least was ascending to those heights. And even I would still argue some of those things. But in the Eastern Conference, where it's easier to get into the playoffs, you play easier opponents on a more consistent basis. We just launched those guys ahead of Booker. And it's just crazy to me. But beyond all of that, what will matter this season is Devin Booker having a revenge season, a do you remember me season. Well, if you don't, you're going to. And if Devin Booker can take his I don't want to say misfit cast of toys because he's got some fairly good players here, but kind of a miscast of toys. Dylan Brooks just came off 2 of his better seasons, and the Rockets said we're good. We want loud, sometimes available emotionally and sometimes available physically Kevin Durant over you. Jalen Green was passed up for Kevin Durant. Mark Williams was pushed off to the side for the second time in just a matter of like 6 months. Booker has to take this cast of misfits who have talent, undoubtedly so, and take them to the playoffs this year. And what I mean by that, because when I say playoffs, I have to specify. Be a top 10 team in the West, and as the 9, as the 10 seed in the play-in tournament, surprise some people. Maybe sneak your way in. But the only way Devin Booker is going to get back into the respect that I believe he deserves, which is the second best shooting guard in the NBA, ahead of Donovan Mitchell, ahead of Jalen, you can argue Jalen Brown a 3 or a 2 because of the Jason Tatum effect, but ahead of Jalen Williams, like it's nauseating to me. But the way that Devin Booker gets back in this is by taking this misfit cast into the playoffs next season, or at least keep them really competitive. Because like this list, it just feels inconsistent. But this is what happens when you get, 50, 40, whatever, 50 to 40 or 40 to 50 podcast hosts to vote on guys who some of them are just like Devin Booker. Haven't seen him in a while. So it feels a little disrespectful to have him behind guys like Donovan Mitchell and Cade Cunningham and Evan Mobley, who have no playoff success, while Devin Booker, if I'm not mistaken, outside of LeBron James and Kevin Durant on this list, and Anthony Davis as well. Okay, so there's a couple of guys in here. I was going to say Devin Booker is one of the few players on here in the top 20 who have been to a finals, but that's not, the majority haven't, but still not very fair. But still, like, when you look at this list, Anthony Edwards hasn't been to a finals. Victor Wembanyama hasn't won a playoff game. Jalen Brunson hasn't been to the finals. Donovan Mitchell. You look at the spots down here. Cade Cunningham hasn't won a playoff series. Evan Mobley, no. Kawhi Leonard has won one, but it was a really long time ago. It just feels like Booker was pushed to the side because we haven't seen him in a while. And this is the type of disrespect Devin Booker is going to get. Instead of being a fringe superstar, which is what I believe Devin Booker is, not a 1, but one of the best 2s in the league, he got moved back to the middle of the star pack. And it just feels a little disrespectful to me. Okay, let's move on to Jalen Green. We will continue to react to this list throughout the course of the week, and we'll have guests on to talk about it as well. But let's move on to Jalen Green, who came in at number 92. And why I actually think it's pretty fair and almost a little gracious. Let's talk about that and much more next. But first, today's show is brought to you by my friends over at FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. This is insane, guys. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel. It makes things very easy for me to be able to I'm a lines guy. I'm not a big money line guy. I kind of like to feel like test my knowledge a little bit. Yeah, this team's going to win, but by how much? And can the other team cover? Like this last weekend, I would have actually lost my $5 bet. The Cardinals were 6.5-point favorites against the Saints. And I said, I think I'd take the Saints to cover that, but the Cardinals to win. And the Saints just short of that. Cardinals win by 7 points. And that's why, you got to be careful with these things. But still, this week, the Cardinals 4.5 points favorites against the Panthers. That one's interesting. I might take the Panthers to cover again because of that history that the Carolina Panthers just continue to beat up on the Cardinals. But either way, make sure you check out FanDuel Sportsbook. Are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. All right, let's move on. And I kind of went back and forth on this list a little bit, and I apologize if it's a little jumbled out here. It's a lot of information. We're drinking from a fire hose, so bear with me here. Jalen Green came in at number 92 in the NBA top 100 players as voted on by the Locked On podcast hosts and those in their network. And I actually thought it was a little gracious to Jalen Green. I wasn't sure if he was going to be listed as a top 100 player, but he's on this list, and I think it's fair where he's at. Christian Brown ranked just ahead of him. Jaka Pirtle is just behind him. And then you have Nikola Vucevic, RJ Barrett, Peyton Pritchard, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, CJ McCollum, Anthony Simons, and Toumani Camara just behind him, rounding out the top 100. But still, you go to the 81 through 90s, and you're like, okay, I don't think Jalen Green's better than Naz Reid. I can't put him ahead of Brandon Miller yet. Josh Giddey, probably no. Herb Jones, no. Asur Thompson. Emmanuel Quickly, maybe, but I guess not for this argument. Josh Hart, DeAndre Hunter, Bradley Beal's just interesting. How the hell he's still on this list is absolutely crazy to me. You'd think that playing games would actually matter at some point, but I guess not. I left Bradley Beal off my list entirely. But Jalen Green, he came in at number 92 in the top 100 players list as voted on by Locked On podcast hosts. And I thought it was fair. Like Devin Booker, it felt like he was a little disrespected. Wasn't in the public eye, and it felt like it felt like hosts just pushed him to the side a little bit. Jalen Green, I actually kind of feel like people bought into him more. And I have never said once that I'm out on the Jalen Green experience. I know sometimes people like to paint me as the bad guy, like I'm not rooting for Jalen Green, which is just asinine. I come on here and I give my honest, unfiltered opinion, and you'll either respect me for it or you won't. Like, and it's just as plain as that. But I'm not going to come on here and lie to you. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I've got no problem being wrong. But sometimes I get painted as anti-Jalen Green. Would I have traded for him? No. But it's not because I don't see the clear talent of Jalen Green. Insane athleticism. I actually think he has the tools to be not an elite defender, but a plus defender on offense. I don't think he's a bad defender. I think he's just about as average as it can get, but he can get even better than that. And because of his athleticism, because of his ability to leap out of the gym and hit the occasional three-point shot, I actually do like what we can get in Jalen Green. I just wonder, because you have two guards that kind of need the ball in their hands to make things happen, and because they're both kind of inefficient three-point shooters, that being Booker and Jalen Green, I worry about the fit. So paint me as anti-Jalen Green, that's fine. I would just disagree with that. I think it's just what we've seen. But here's the positive thing. Jalen Green at 92 feels about right. But the question is, can he make a leap? And what does that leap look like? I think when you look at this list and you look at the 91 through 100 guys, and you see like some of these older players kind of fading out of their prime, and then you see like Peyton Pritchard on here at 96 and Brandon Miller at 82 or Josh Giddey at 83. I think just like a couple of those guys, like Giddey or Brandon Miller or maybe even Naz Reid still, but Asur Thompson, Herb Jones, some of these players, Kobe White can maybe fall into that, Nembhard. I think Jalen Green, if he's a little bit more efficient, even if his numbers come down a little bit, but his efficiency goes up, and because of the new pieces that the Suns have put around Devin Booker and Ryan Dunn, Dillon Brooks, Rasheer Fleming, come on, Malawach, that Jalen Green can actually be a plus defender for this team. Not a bad defender, but a plus defender. And if that's the case, if Jalen Green becomes a little bit better defender, like not even like crazy, just a little bit better, and a more efficient three-point shooter, And maybe his points and statistics tick down just a hair, but his efficiency goes up. We're talking about Jalen Green being a top 50 player in basketball. That's like when people try to tell me, like, oh, you don't see it. No, I do see the athleticism and pure skill that Jalen Green possesses. What I like to do, though, is live in reality and live in today's world, not fantasy land that might come 5 years from now. Green has been an inefficient basketball player to this point in his career. I think there's a very strong argument, and this is where the people in the comments section are going to get mad at me. He was the third or fourth, shield your ears, maybe even fifth best player or most important player on the Houston Rockets last year. Şengün was really important. Amen Thompson was uberly important. Fred VanVleet was uberly important. And, you can even argue like Dillon Brooks and Jabari Smith might have contributed more to winning than Jalen Green did. Did you watch Green in the playoffs? It wasn't great. So I am going off of what I've seen. And we've seen the statistics for Jalen Green. 21 points a night, the leading scorer on the second best team in the West, but wasn't really done in efficiency. Shot 17 shots a night, man. That's a lot of shots. At 42%, 35% from three, which you think isn't bad until you realize he shot 8 of them a night. It's going to be a roller coaster when it comes to Jalen Green. It just is. But I'm willing to concede with you that there is absolutely a world where Jalen Green could be awesome. And if he takes those next steps, and I believe motivation can really do that for him, you're talking about a top 50, top 40 player in basketball. And then the Suns are really in business because you've got 2 combo guards who can both handle the ball, shoot the ball efficiently, and then you just got to get dudes around them to kind of figure out the contending piece. But then there's also door number 2, where if Green doesn't do that and the efficiency doesn't get better, he could drop off this list altogether by the end of next season. So there's that. Let's move on to the final segment of the show. How many players will be on this list a year from now? And who will be on this list a year from now? Let's do some predictions. Let's do that and much more next. Closing out the show as we're reacting to the NBA Top 100 as voted upon by the Locked On Podcast host of said NBA teams. Projecting 1 year from now, I am not of the belief that the Suns are a bona fide playoff team. I'll give you the spiel again. It's not, me being anti this team. I just think I'm grounded in reality here. The Suns would have to be 13 games better. Like if the West stays exactly what it is or stays close to what it is, the Suns are going to have to be double-digit games better to be a playoff team next year. That is a lot to ask, guys. That's a heavy lift. In the Eastern Conference, maybe it's doable. In the Western Conference, it's kind of tough. But because of the new rules and the new play-in tournament, I could see the Phoenix Suns being a play-in team. I could see them being the 9th or 10th spot, the 8th spot potentially. And then everything changes. And I believe those 2 games that the Suns will play in a play-in tournament potentially will change the aspect and the minds of how the Suns are viewed. Because if in one season, if they get rid of KD and they get rid of Bradley Beal and they actually get better, people are going to start to see the Suns as a more functional organization. And so you move the Suns into the playoffs potentially, and they, play the 1 or 2 seed, and it's the Nuggets or it's the Thunder or, whoever it might be at the top 2 spots. And the Suns give them a run for their money, meaning take it to 6 games. That will drastically change the way the Phoenix Suns are viewed in the NBA landscape. That means Devin Booker's maybe moving up a spot or 2, maybe up to 16. That means Jalen Green is moving up probably like 15 spots because that means he was efficient and he coexisted with Devin Booker. And then that's where the wild cards start to come into play. If the Suns are better this year than they were last year, meaning a playoff team because they played well in the play-in tournament, you're talking about Ryan Dunn taking that next leap. Dylan Brooks maybe getting some votes in the top 100. Mark Williams maybe to that case. Like the sky's the limit there. Because then people start to look at the Suns and say, oh man, that team's like a player away. Phoenix is a destination that players want to go to. That would make sense. They just gave the Thunder a run for their money in the first round. Maybe if they, move Jalen Green and package him and get another star alongside Devin Booker without completely depleting their depth, that changes the way people view this team. However, I don't also think the opposite. I don't think the Suns are going to fall flat on their face and just be worse than they were last year. I think they're going to be a few games better while also being more competitive. And how many times have I said this? Before the game starts, I don't want fans, you, the listener, to be watching the Suns game and say to yourself, oh, they're playing the Lakers tonight. I don't need to watch that. That's a loss. We need to limit those next season, meaning you're watching every game because you're like, yeah, the Thunder are favored, but damn, the Suns have been playing pretty well recently. Let's see if they can pull off the upset. What I think is most likely is the Suns have 3 players in the top 100. Devin Booker. I think Jalen Green hangs around. Even though I've been painted as this Jalen Green hater, I'm coming around to this idea that Green, something is going to be better because you can't be dumped by your first team after finally making it to the playoffs and not looking in the mirror at least a little bit. You'd have to have, I think, pretty low self-awareness to not fix something. And then who would be the other third player? I've racked my brain around this all day, but I'm not going to change my mind. I think it's Ryan Dunn. I think Ryan Dunn takes a leap this year for the Suns team. I think he becomes a all-NBA caliber defender and becomes a 35% three-point shooter where you can't just leave him open anymore. And then if that's the case, young player, elite defender, shoots the three ball pretty well, he then becomes one of the more desirable players. And if you look at this list, that's like where you have your Peyton Pritchards or your Nickeil Alexander-Walkers or your Jakob Poeltls or your RJ Barretts. Those aren't the same players, obviously, as Ryan Dunn. I just named Jakob Poeltl in this. But those are like your superstar role players, or maybe moving into the next realm of like a Drew Holiday, who's at number 78 now, or a Cam Johnson, who, actually feels a little low. I'd probably move him up, but like an Andrew Nembhard at 71. That's where I think that next progression is for Ryan Dunn. That's how high I think of him. I know I'm always the crazy person that's been so high on Ryan Dunn, but when you have someone that athletic, that quick and twitchy and young, and has already shown major progression shooting the basketball, like I do think the sky's the limit still for him. I'm still holding out hope, which I don't even know why I'm saying it like that. It's been one season, that he is an all-star caliber player. If you ask me right now, will Ryan Dunn make at least one all-star in his career? I'd probably say yes. I'm high on Ryan Dunn. And so if we're talking about players next year, I think Dunn can be in that mix. Another one, and I'm going to still hang my hat on this. We mentioned him last night, Rasheed Fleming. He's going to get a lot of playing time on this team. If he can shoot the three ball effectively, very similar to Ryan Dunn, but again, a good defender too, I could see him slipping into the 90 through 100s. Other than that, Mark Williams, you got to play games. Like I would be talking out of both ends of my mouth if I didn't like the Bradley Beal thing. So you got to play games. So I don't want to send him in there. Dylan Brooks, it feels like if he was going to be in there, he already would by now. I think those two guys are the two players that you're looking at that I think can move on to that next round. All right, guys. That's all I got for you guys today. Do me a favor, hit that like, share, subscribe button to right here on the Locked On Phoenix Suns podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Do me a favor, follow me on all social media platforms at Ben Garcia Show. Tomorrow, John Voida will join the show. We'll get some of his reactions to this as well. We'll debate it. We'll talk about it. We'll juice this content for all it's worth. But until then, guys, hit that like, share, subscribe button. Follow me on all social media platforms. I'm Benjamin Garcia. And for everyone watching the show, thank you. But until next time, it's been Locked On Phoenix Suns.